Today we're talking about the 2023 French-Canadian film by Pascal Plante, Red Rooms, or Les Chambres Rouges. Being a French-Canadian myself, and very much enjoying crime thrillers, this was 100% up my alley. And it's just, I read the logline, and this movie was also recommended to me because I've been workshopping a story, a short film that I've been trying to work on that has very similar themes to this. And I think the way that it just made the whole movie, it was like exactly a movie that I would love to have made. And it's just, the exact movie that I really, really want to see. This is my favorite movie of 2023 now. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. There's a lot going on and a lot left to be questioned in the best way possible. And whenever making a movie about like a serial killer, about just any sort of morbid subject matter, deciding how much you're going to show and how much you're going to reveal is always a question. And I feel like when I've been working shop stories about maybe murder cases or things like that, it's like you always think of, oh, what will the impact of showing these images, showing these horrible things happening, what will that do? And this movie doesn't show like any of it, which I thought worked out absolutely perfectly. I've always wondered how to make it work so well, but the complementing characters, it's about the serial killer, but the actor who plays the serial killer in the trials, he has the easiest acting job on the planet. He just like sits there, and like there's only one scene where he looks over. Most of the time he's just sitting there like bored the whole time. But it's fantastic. I would say that this type of crime thriller is just completely up my alley if I'm comparing it to movies maybe like Kurosawa's Cure or Pulse, something like Seven, of course, like a Zodiac. And it's very unique as well in the way where it's very laid back with the camera work. I thought the camera work was absolutely phenomenal. It's very modern Montreal.
Hello there.
Hello there. Again, very laid back camera, very sleek. She is also a fashion model. And so I think that it's like stylized in the way where it's like the style is very laid back, very polished. A lot of the long shots with like just a camera that has the freedom to go around the entire move, very slow motions, very slow pans. And then also a lot of the stuff in her house when she's just like on her computer doing her hacking, doing her poker playing, and shots like this where it's just like a close-up of her navigating a screen. It's always really, really tough to portray technology on film and just like, showing messages. People always, try to have like the pop-up messages or something like that. But the way this movie does it, it doesn't do any of that. Honestly, a lot of the time, it's just this and then a reverse shot of, her doing stuff on the computers, and it works out very, very well. Wait, is this a horror movie? Honestly, it kind of is. It kind of is a horror movie. There is like very, very minimal graphic things. Like there's some shots of like blood, and there's some shots of some, I don't want to say body parts. There's the shot of like of braces that were on a victim that had been taken off of a victim. And like presented in the trial. And there, audio wise, there is some maybe horrific audio in this. So let's call it a thriller. Yeah, let's do it. A thriller. Hardly know her. But alas. Honestly, that statement, hardly know her. For the main character, what's the actress's name? Juliette Gariepi. But she was absolutely phenomenal as Kellyanne. Again, it's a movie about a serial killer, about the killing of 3 young girls. I believe it was 13, 14, 16 were their ages. And so we're going to the trial, and there's a whole jury, and the very first shot of the film, I believe it's like 5 minutes long. It's the opening statements from the lawyers, just outlining the case, outlining why they think that he's guilty, and it's a very convincing argument. Very, very convincing. The lawyer right at the beginning, she was phenomenal at just outlaying everything. And then Kellyanne is just sitting in the courtroom. And the question is she involved? Why is she there? And that's a line that we saw in the trailer there. an unlikely friend that she met up with. What was her name again? Clementine. She has a line in the film which is kind of like very much portraying what the audience was thinking is, why are you here? And I think that's a big question for the main character the entire film. Why is she involved in this case? Why does she care? Because she's not a detective. She's not a part of the legal system in any way. She's a model. And she keeps on showing up to this trial. She's not on the jury or anything. And so, before getting into very major spoilers, the movie is very interesting in the fact that its protagonist is very mysterious and her motives are very questionable. And I would say she isn't really a good person. But connecting it to the real world, what the movie's trying to say, it seems like throughout watching the movie and by looking at a bit of discourse online, that it very much is talking about people's fascination with the true crime subject. And I feel like I'm not the biggest true crime guy. I feel like I do enjoy fictional crime a lot more like this one. And this one has a commentary on people's obsession with crimes that actually exist and the weird dynamic that happens when people completely unrelated to a case get involved and are super interested. It's like it's a hobby of theirs to be so interested and maybe to even take it upon themselves to talk about, or I don't know too much about it, maybe even be crazy enough to, interfere somehow in this trial, in the proceedings, and how that can impact some of the people who are actually very much involved, like families of victims or anything like that. I enjoy true crime if it's unsolved, but if they know who did it, what's the point? Exactly. And it's a weird dynamic. It's a weird thing that's been normalized. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing that it has been normalized, that people are so involved in unsolved cases, because, there could still very much be families out there that have been impacted by this, any sort of connections to the case whatsoever. And yeah, people talking about it online. And there's a great sequence in this movie where it's like a talk show and they're getting callers. And so her friend, Clementine, calls in to the talk show to say her thoughts. And the very, I don't want to say dismissive is not the main word that I'm talking about, but they very much are dismissive. But the very lackadaisical way that they're talking about this case that is very, very much like the trial is going on right now. And so it's not just like podcasts or like YouTube media, stuff like that. This is like, on TV, the news is talking about this. This one in this case is a talk show and making a lot of jokes. There's one guy on the panel who just keeps on just making jokes about the case in any way he can. And everybody's rolling their eyes. They're like, oh, that's too far. That's too far. And so I guess we never see the direct impact of that maybe on the people's families or anything, but it's just something very interesting to think about, and a very interesting angle that the film took. And now more into spoilers here. I think most of the spoilers that I want to talk about are about her in general, Kellyanne in general, because again, she's a model and she's not directly involved in the case whatsoever. But what she does is she is, again, like you said before, Lost Server, she's hacking into the mainframe. Somehow, it's revealed about halfway through the movie, after she's gone to a bunch of trials, after she's befriended Clementine, invited her over to her house because she realized she didn't have a place to stay. It's revealed that after they're about to show the snuff films of the girls being tortured because the murderer had a mask on and was torturing these women for live audiences to pay to see, hence Red Rooms, which is the online place that they are being viewed. So they're about to play them in court. They're like, everybody who isn't family, please get out of here. And then Clementine is like, hey, I just want to kind of listen or peek in a bit the door. And then Kellyanne is like, oh no, you don't see his face. And Clementine's like, how do you know this? And so she's already hacked to the mainframe. She already has seen those two videos. And then we watch it together. And Kellyanne seems very desensitized. And again, in shots like this, there's a few shots like this of her watching these videos, of her trying to bid on the final video, because there's 3 girls that were murdered, 3 videos. One of the videos hadn't been released, and there's an online anonymous bid to get this last video. And so she's playing poker at the same time, trying to get enough Bitcoin to bid on this snuff film. And oh god, it's crazy. Yeah, again, she's just hacking into the mainframe. And it's, I don't know, her character is very, very interesting. Again, doesn't really say her motive on why she's doing all this. She seems to have a stable job, but then she loses it because she's going off the rockers. And so her going off the rockers, again, very crazy. She's been going to these trials and also been doing, some illegal stuff, hacking, knowing how to get these videos already and everything, hacking into one of the parents' emails to try to like get the code to her house door. And so the straw that broke the camel's back, there's the proper metaphor there, is when she dressed up as a blonde schoolgirl with braces and blue eyes, because all three of the girls that were killed were like that, and she went into the trial dressed like that, and then she was dragged out. Because up to that point, she hadn't done anything directly like insane in front of other people. She's, been doing her dealings on the internet or whatever, but then she did that in front of the court, and she finally got the killer to look at her instead of being moped in his cell the entire time. He looked at her, and that's such a key moment in the movie to realize, like, if that was like her trying to figure out if he did it, does she just want acknowledgement from him? Was she one of the groupies who's obsessed with him for some reason? It's just what an interesting moment. I remember reading about a killer who's recorded videos of himself, and he put a swirl effect on his face, but the police were able to just reverse the swirl and got him. That's actually so funny. That's very, very, I need to look that one up. Okay. That's very funny. Okay, back to Kellyanne, because it had played up her character the entire movie that she was very well off. She had a nice apartment. She had a good job. She was very analytical. She's very about the numbers. She is very healthy, good to her body. She does a bunch of workout routines throughout the movie as well. She plays, racquetball. And she's seen playing poker online, and she knows how to be patient. She knows that it's a number game, that to a certain point, it's about skill and not just luck. And so she's a very analytical person, but also the emotional side that we never really get to see because she's so... She doesn't really show much emotion throughout the entire film. There's only a few key moments where she does. And so not knowing her motivation the entire movie makes the entire movie. It's perfect because she kind of feels like more of the villain than the serial killer. We get the opening remarks at the very beginning of the movie, and we're like, this guy, like, probably did it. Like, it's pretty clear here. But, like, what is she doing the entire movie? Why is she so interested? And so she bids on this final torture video, and she wins. And that's one of the moments where she does show emotion. She like, oh God, it was down to the last second. She just won a poker hand. She had enough Bitcoin, and she won the bid online. And then she stands back, kind of like cries in awe. And then she pulls up the video, the last torture video, and starts watching it again. I say as in because she's watched the other two. And like, again, the shots like this of her just watching these videos and having a straight face. It's like, what is she thinking? Does she like just absolutely love watching these videos? Is that why she's doing it? Because in the end, I do like the twist. She takes the video, puts it on a USB, sneaks into the mother of the murdered daughter's house, and puts the USB on her bedside table. Also, she did it while dressed up in the blonde schoolgirl outfit. And she took pictures in the dead girl's room doing the same peace sign that she had been seen doing, photographed before. And so she's putting herself in the victim role as if she was role-playing as one of the dead kids. And so looking at it from afar, you're like, okay, she's like giving the evidence to the mother. And that's a good thing. Because the very next scene is a news report being like, yeah, we got this last video. It's pretty damning. Yeah, he did it. Okay, he's going to jail. But at the same time, she's also doing all of this other act around the entire thing. She's taking a photo in the dead girl's room. She's dressing up. Clearly, it's like, also, she could have given the USB to the police. She could have given it to anybody else. And it's like she's doing all of this performative stuff at the same time, which seems to not be something that's benefiting other people, but benefiting her. Why is she trying to do all this? And that is kind of like the main question of the whole thing. Is she secretly obsessed with this guy this whole time? But less than Clementine, because Clementine's very outwardly. She's talking to a reporter. She's like, no, he's innocent. They're just framing him. She goes on this talk show, but she is more reserved. Maybe she's just more calculated about her obsession with this guy. Maybe she was a part of the people who paid to watch these red rooms in the first place. And just her calculated nature allows her to put on the facade of being so straight-faced and try to fit into society and really not out herself. But I don't know. It's very interesting. And again, this goes along with people who really do love true crime and the reasons why they love it. I feel like most people, again, they're just fascinated with the logistics, a lot of motives. And it is interesting. Of course, I do love crime fiction, and a lot of it's probably very similar. But it was just a phenomenal main character in this movie that is just so obscure. And you can just see that, like, her motives are very weird, where it's presented as maybe she's trying to do the right thing, but at the same time, no, it seems like she kind of really wanted to watch these videos. So, but yeah, it was just, it was so interesting. And last tidbit of information is that her online name was Lady of Shalott. Lady of Shalott, which is a famous poem. And I slightly did research on this. The Lady of Shalott's gift is thus her tragedy. She is able to represent the truth and beauty of the world through gorgeous images, but can't touch the glories of her images. Can't touch the glories her images represent. Her life is bound up in art making that she can't survive reality. So, connections to Kellyanne and her character. The beauty of the world. She is a model. Gorgeous images. She gets photographed, but also, if we're talking about maybe her art being these videos and being able to access and view these videos, who knows? Who knows? There was another summary that I read. Maybe it was just Wikipedia. She is like in a tower, very isolated from everything, and she like kind of controls. She's like a Madame Web. Those are pretty much the last thoughts that I had on this. But if we're looking at her online username, Lady of Shalott, as a connection to her character, she's like, behind the screen doing all this work. And it's like a lot of people, again, who like true crime are able to be behind their screens and read about these stories and ingest them. And it's all very weird. But I love this movie. I thought it was fantastic.